All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, who is a journalist? Not that long ago, actually not that hard to answer that question. They work for a news outlet. Easy. But around 1996, when the internet really began to take off and user-generated content slowly began to eat into the attention span of Americans, it started to become not so easy. Is someone who just posts something that happened to them, is that person a journalist? It's a tough question. A tougher question is this. Well, we have well-enshrined rights as journalists here in the United States. Should those rights, as expressed in the Constitution and subsequent case law, apply to that person? I've always erred on the side of yes. In fact, I err on the side of even if you're not a journalist and don't even consider yourself one. I believe that if you're an everyday citizen, but then you produce an act of journalism, like let's say you're in public and something happens and you post about it, it should still apply to you for that instance. This is still the fight of our time, especially with the rise of the internet and non-institutional media. And the reason it matters today is how these people are treated by the law, as expressed in a troubling new verdict here in Washington, D.C. concerning January 6th. Now, Stephen Horn is a 23-year-old North Carolina resident. He was just found guilty of 4 misdemeanors in federal court in Washington, relating to charges of having entered the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Horn's case is different from others because he has claimed since January 6 he was a journalist documenting the event rather than a protester. Horn's case has garnered scrutiny ever since the day of the attack, when he posted video to his Facebook page documenting the event with the caption, quote, "I was in D.C. today when the Capitol was stormed." Horn did not try to actually hide his presence in the attack. He followed up with footage that was a post on January 7th, 2021. Here's what he wrote, quote, "I was in D.C. today, the Capitol was stormed. This is the full unedited footage that I took." He adds, quote, "This was not a peaceful protest. I saw many instances of pushing against police officers, as well as at least one instance where a barrage of projectiles was thrown." At the end, he says this, quote, "I did not enter the Capitol building as part of the protest or for cheap thrills, but to document and accurately record a significant event which was taking place. Feel free to share, download, repost this video, or any clip from it." The footage was from video that was taken by a helmet cam that he was wearing at the time. Now, DC prosecutors have argued Horn is a sham journalist, that he invented the excuse the day after the attack to avoid criminal charges. Their argument is that the footage doesn't even show him trying to ask questions of people at the attack, and the footage was actually not even that good. That I don't disagree with. They zoomed in particularly on a photo of him standing atop an Abraham Lincoln statue with a camera that was pointed at the crowd in selfie fashion. The defense, however, argued a different story. They noted that the entire footage does not show him ever participating in any Stop the Steal chants. They show that he was never aggressive towards law enforcement. He did not destroy or participate in any destruction of property. In fact, public record himself shows that Horn turned himself in after the FBI wanted to question him in relation to the incident, and he even shared all of his footage with the FBI so they could identify other people involved in the attack. Since the event, Horn has produced a documentary on January 6th with an expansive list of tactical failures, the timeline, perspectives on crowd control, and despite his defense and the expansive First Amendment protections provided to journalists under U.S. law, the jury took only hours to convict him of the following: entering or remaining in a restricted area, disorderly or disruptive conduct in a restricted area, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. In my opinion, this is a major miscarriage of justice for several reasons. Number one is obvious. The federal prosecutors here sought to cross the line of First Amendment protections to go after someone who all evidence shows did not engage in any egregious activity in the Capitol except for entering. If he was a normal citizen, it would be a different matter. But considering the decent enough evidence here that he genuinely was producing acts of journalism and has since committed said acts, it was not worth bringing charges and going to trial over such a matter. To be clear, I am not saying if you murder someone and then say it was for a documentary, you shouldn't be charged. I'm saying here that considering how blurry the line is and considering how many dozens of journalists that were present within the Capitol on that day, that establishing a precedent like this one makes it more difficult, not less, to conduct journalism from this day forward. In fact, one of the arguments the DC prosecutors made was that Horn was not credentialed. This is an insulting and an antiquated consideration of journalism. Think of some of the most monumental footage that you have seen taken in the last decade. Very, very little of it comes from credentialed journalists. They come from citizens in the wild who upload that content for the world to see. The act must be protected at all costs. Here it is clear the feds sought to make a statement that crossing into the Capitol building is so awful that it is worth impeding on First Amendment case law. What do you think, Krystal? And by the way, I'm not particularly sympathetic to this guy because
it's a tough one.
It's a tough case.
Because here's the thing that gets me is he'd never done anything like that.
He'd never done anything before.
He'd never produced any journalism before. And so it does feel very convenient. And he was, he was on Facebook. He was like supporting Stop the Steal groups and whatever. So it does feel very convenient that the day after he's like, I'm a journalist, guys. Here's my journalistic footage. So
I get that.
I think it's a tough one.
I think it's tough. That said, look, if he had beat somebody, if he had destroyed property, I would say,
yeah.
okay,
I mean,
fine.
then that
That's
makes it
different,
much
right?
more clear
Exactly.
cut because
But-
those are separate crimes.
It's
that
actual
even
crime.
if you are you're not allowed to beat people up if you're a journalist.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I think it's really a difficult one because, like I said, the thing that really sticks with me is he'd never done anything like this before.
If I had to guess, he probably did invent it, but I still don't even care because I think that the fact is that if you.
So how do you though keep from having a principle that anyone can just like bring a camera and then commit a crime and then pretend after the fact like, oh, it was all for journalism?
Well, that's the thing. It depends on the severity of the crime and like what it was. So like if he had destroyed a structure, if he whatever, like any of those sort of things,
but
I
since
think
it's just
fine.
trespassing, you're like, whatever.
It's trespass.
Yeah,
We're talking
I
about a
kinda feel that.
misdemeanor entry charge here, like 4 separate one, unrestricted ground. I mean, that's basically making it so that if you don't have a press, for example, I don't have a press pass. Okay, so when I have to go, I have to get a visitor's pass. So let's say I didn't do that properly, but while I'm there, I'm like filming something.
Yeah.
I mean, look, nobody would, but they could, and that's one of those
But
where.
like with you, I mean, it would be much more clear cut.
You're right.
Because you, like we do a show,
This
and
is
you
why-
produce prior works of journalism, and so it wasn't just an after the fact.
I don't disagree. I still believe in the most expansive protection for the exact reason of always there will be the edge case, and on the edge case, we should side on the side of the First Amendment, especially whenever we're talking about misdemeanor. We're not talking about destruction. We're talking about, some BS trespassing here. Look, he probably invented it.
I
to
agree.
be honest,
I agree with
I
that.
really do. I really think he probably invented it. That said, I don't care. I think that the precedent that's being set here is bad enough that it's like we shouldn't be bringing this charge. If he's a QAnon shaman or whatever, that's a whole other matter, right? But like even on that, it's like going to the length of a trial just to set a precedent for this. I don't know. That seems like on the. I mean, think about how many people came out of Ferguson, right? Who were, they were right in the middle of it. Guys like Tim Pool, or I forget some of the others. There's a lot of journalists today, actually, who made their name on Ferguson. Not one of them were credentialed. They were just people with YouTube channels.
Yeah,
and they were
for
caught
sure.
up in the melee.
The credentialing
Yeah.
piece is obviously complete bullshit.
Right, but
because
if
there's
they're
a million journalists
participating-
out there who are. But I mean, to me, the most compelling argument is like it's a low, like since it's an edge case. And it's this low-level misdemeanor trespassing. It's like, all right, do we really want to set this back?
Why
That's
go
to
to
me the
trial?
most compelling, but do I actually believe this guy that he was there for
No, I don't
journalistic
really believe
purposes?
him.
No,
Yeah,
not really.
I don't believe him.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed seeing us react to each other's monologues, make sure you subscribe so that you can see our reactions to every single piece of commentary.
That's right. Go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber today.